benefit us and our customers,
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, baby.
existing and future, or you want to work with us.
Yeah. Hey there, Tanya Chappell with Secure Investments, Realty and Management, and I'm here with Ashley Cook and Tanya Souza, and we just wanted to take a minute to kind of recap the year, go over some of the challenges that we've had, some of the neat new things that we've put into play in the business that kind of helps our owners and our tenants. So one of the first things we thought we'd talk about is everybody's dreaded fear, and that's water damage. Floods.
Yeah.
We had a couple of those this year. So Ashley's going to talk about one of the incidences that we had.
It seems like we had a surplus of
I know.
flood-related work orders this year. But anyway, this one in particular, I woke up. It was about 5:30, 6 o'clock. You know, in my grogginess, I think we all reach over, grab our phone. I see I have a missed call from like our emergency maintenance line about 2 a.m. This frantic tenant. The toilet's overflowing. I can't find the water shut off. So, you know, I'm going, oh my gosh, the water's ran all night. This unit's completely underwater. When in fact, the tenant was able to get it off. Our vendors were quick to get out there and start the water restoration process. But in that, it touched a subject we had already been looking at, renter's insurance. And because this tenant did have some additional living expenses they were going to incur and loss of property. So it kind of made us focus that and put it on a hot spot sooner than we might have. So we are requiring it when new leases starting July 1st. Tiana, I think you're mentioning it when you start the renewal process now.
Yeah, how's that going over? So we're requiring the tenants to now have renter's insurance. Thankfully, around that time, AppFolio, the company we use for our technology for our property management platform, rolled out a way to integrate the renter's insurance right in with the tenant portal. And so we looked at that, we looked at all the different options and everything, and then Tiana started implementing it. And so how did that go?
So the integration went a lot smoother than expected. I think the benefits that came with it were easily grasped by residents. They understood that owner's insurance does not cover tenant damage or tenant's property damage. So
Right.
having that renter's insurance is really beneficial, and again, it was well received.
As well as very cost efficient. The average policy price is $120 for a year, $10 a month, and I mean,
Exactly.
it's just a lot of benefit for a small price.
Right, and they're able to just pay that right in with their rent. I don't think we really got much pushback from that.
No, I was able to pretty much send an addendum out, as Ashley mentioned. With the new leases, we were already starting to have those addendums signed by residents. And then as the renewals came, I would also just go ahead and have them sign up right there and then. So it was a lot smoother than I expected. I think it's a win-win for owners and residents.
And
Definitely.
Just to add, while our software integrates it easily, you can purchase it right there. If you have your own private agent, you can also purchase it through your agent. And then there's an insurance link on the tenant portal. You just enter the company name, policy number, and the effective dates. It notifies us that you've put that information in there, and it also notifies us when it's about to expire.
Right. So that's good. That's one of the wonderful things about being able to help protect the owner with that renter's insurance. It's very inexpensive. The tenant pays for it, but like you were saying, it offers that additional liability policy for the owner in case of, you know, flood or, you know, some type of other damage that you're not expecting, and blah, 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 blah. All right, so we'll end up editing that and probably just stopping it right after.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that we said enough there. Okay, so next subject will be, let's talk about the roof and gutters. Okay, all right.
Hot topic.
Hot topic.
Charge or not
yeah.
to charge?
Yes, that's a good way to address it. Okay.
I'm gonna be on the landlord's side here.
Yeah. So another hot topic this year, and I gotta laugh at this one because it's really, you know, my own back and forth struggle. Because I do own rental property, but I also am a property manager and I manage for other people. One of the gray areas is who's responsible for cleaning out the gutters and keeping the roof clean. And so, I mean, just in my own head, I go back and forth about this. I'm like, well, you know, it's part of cleaning. The tenant should really be responsible for making sure that the roof and the gutters are cleaned out. But then, of course, I kick in with my property management brain, and I'm like, well, liability, I really don't want those tenants up on the roof. And so this year we finally just made a policy of it is definitely going to be the owner's responsibility to keep the roof clean. But there are some properties that whenever we go to them and we're bringing them into management that we already know because it's heavily treed that it's going to require a roof clean on a regular basis. And so Ashley has a way that, you know, she helps keep up with that.
Yeah, so our system, it's very integrated. I simply go in there and we can make a quarterly roof cleaning. And so we probably have 5 or 6 properties that I think every 3 months we just go ahead and send someone out, get the roof cleaned off, the gutters. Another thing that's come about this year is the gutter guards. It's an additional expense, but it can cut down on that cost a little bit.
And then of course, whenever you don't do the cleaning of the gutters and the roof, then you know, you end up with soft spots because it's trapping in water anywhere you have those leaves, and the gutters, especially when they get full of debris, trapping that water in, and then before you know it, we have a situation like we did at one of the ones in Hale Plantation where, you know, they had about $800, $900 worth of roof repair because it just wasn't being taken care of regularly.
And speaking from experience too, I found that most homeowners do consider cleaning off the roof and gutters as part of a homeowner responsibility. I think just from, again, as you mentioned, liability purposes, it's just not worth having your resident up on the roof trying to clean it off. So.
And a point I read in one of the articles on this was, it said, you know, it's easy to debate and go back and forth, but ultimately it's in the owner's benefit to just go ahead and get it done because it protects your home altogether. Once you start letting water get in, it just, a plethora of problems come.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that we actually look at during our periodic inspections. And so that leads into one of the other subjects we wanted to talk about was our company offers periodic inspections. And we used to do it quarterly, but that's a little too much. And now it's every 4 months. All of us girls, right now, these 2 girls have started taking it over, and they go into the property. We have an inspection form that covers from top to bottom what to look at, and they both go to the property, and one walks around outside as the other one walks around inside. And Tiana, I know that this has been really helpful. You've been able to see all of the properties firsthand, and it gives you a little bit better knowledge. So tell us about some of the experiences that you've had with these.
Absolutely. So of course, a lot of residents are working from home right now, so it's given me a really good opportunity to be able to meet a lot of our residents on a more personal basis. And definitely walking through the home, usually what I do is I, of course, walk through first. I like to have a really close eye on everything. I'm really looking at water connections. That's one of the most important things. Looking at the AC filter and how that looks. I'm also looking at the tub area, looking at the grout, and really those are my main focuses. Of course, if there's any other major damage, I'm noting that as well, but really the water connections or anywhere where there's water is definitely the most important. Once I've walked through, that's when I come back again and actually take a video and photos of any damage and a full video walkthrough of the home. And that has really helped as far as being able to go back and see the condition of the property. Homeowners who, of course, might not live in the area and don't get to see their homes can really get a first look at how everything's looking, not just the damages, but just as a whole. I think it does help homeowners feel a lot more comfortable in that case.
I agree, yeah.
It does, and not only does it benefit us to just kind of know we're looking at the property, warding off any problems that may happen if a home has been occupied for several years, or you know, it's been one of our rentals long term. We can kind of keep an idea and let the owner know in advance what kind of big ticket items like paint or flooring, roofing that they might need to look at and get done in that turn window.
Right, and we do. We walk around, we look at the roof and the gutters, we make sure that the trees are not encumbering on the roof. When we go inside, as Tiana was saying, we're looking for any kind of water damage, we're checking the AC filters, making sure it looks like they're keeping those changed on a regular basis. But one of the things we had started doing this year, and the girls really kind of talked me into doing this, is video. And now we use video all the time in our marketing and in our move-in and move-out inspections. But we are now doing it with the periodic inspections, and that's so great for the owners who can't be here, like you said, to be able to get a nice little view. And it all comes all packaged up real nice with like a 4-page PDF with pictures and a link to a YouTube video. And so, you know, our fee for that used to be $60, and we are increasing that on the new year. It will be $75. But for $75 every 4 months, you have 2 people walking through the house looking for any kind of tenant damage, and then looking for preventive maintenance, and then giving you a view of what your property looks like. And so then, of course, the job's not done there. Once we get done, then Tiana is processing that inspection by sending letters to tenants that need to tweak something. Maybe they need to get their carpet cleaned, or maybe, you know, setting up work orders to get the roof cleaned off, or something like that.
Absolutely. And quite honestly, since most residents are home right now, another thing it allows me to do is to ask them if there are any issues that they're aware of. Not always will a resident feel the need to go ahead and input a work order through their portal. So it gives you more of that first-hand knowledge of, is there anything that we should keep an eye out on? There's things that you might not even know of, you know, the ice maker jams every 10 minutes or whatever it might be. Those little things, it's really nice to have and to write down. And again, I think having the video footage just gives you a little bit of a better scope of the condition of the property.
Yeah.
And I'm probably into tenants sometimes get so nervous that we're coming out to judge them, or, oh, how are you living? I just want to tell you, we're not. Like, we are just truly there to see the maintenance of the property and make sure that there's nothing that we need to get taken care of. So, like, don't be worried when we come.
No, we're not looking at how clean you are and how organized you are. We sometimes really do enjoy looking at your decorations, though, so it does give us some good ideas there.
Yeah.
Some of the other things, though, that we do when we're at the periodic inspections is, you know, verify the pets that are in the property. And so we will, you know, notate which pets are in the property, because some properties don't allow pets. But that kind of segues into the other thing another thing we wanted to talk about was service animals. Service animals has been a really big topic this year because of the emotional support animals that are becoming a lot more popular. It seems like everybody has, you know, the dog in the bag, or, you know, their emotional support animal. And a lot of landlords don't want to allow pets, and they feel like it is their right to be able to say that they won't allow pets. But when it comes to support animals, they're not considered pets. So as property managers, you can't charge a pet fee for it, and you can't charge additional rent for it, or any kind of non-refundable deposit or anything, or even a refundable deposit. So they are treated a little bit differently. But the thing that is new about that this year is that we have finally got some guidelines set down from HUD that gives us the ability to try and verify whether this person's support animal really is a support animal. And so there are questions now that we can ask that come to that. And so we've got some cheater notes here in front of us. But so some of the things that you can ask are, you know, I don't know what to ask.
Well, you could request an ESA verification letter.
Okay, so back up and act like you're just starting off with that, because then I'll edit it. So let me go ahead and do this. Okay.
Yep.
So, so Tiana, let me pause for a minute. So Tiana, what are some of the ways that you check out whether this really is an emotional support animal? What can you do?
Absolutely. So with the policy change, we are able to ask for an ESA, or an emotional support animal verification letter. And that letter does have to be addressed by a physician or a professional that states that the animal is necessary and is an emotional support animal, not just your average day pet. So that having that letter is definitely
and I think where the confusion came in is tenants felt like that was a HIPAA violation, that we can't ask about what is the disability, but the law is, if it's not readily visible, like the person is not physically handicapped, where you could actually see it, then you do have the right to ask, you know,
that separation of like ADA and the emotional support animals really gave us a little bit more leeway to get in there and dig and verify that it is truly a needed pet, animal, not a certificate off the internet that's so easily to get these days.
So since all that's come about, I don't feel like we really had a lot of people come to us with the emotional support animals like we were getting before.
I
You see
agree.
that?
I feel
Yeah.
like we definitely have not had nearly as many. I mean, again, even going back to when we were discussing inspections, I mean, it looks like all of the residents have whatever pets are on file, and very rarely do I see an emotional support animal
Okay.
in the home.
Cool. So another thing that we'd like to talk about and that we're pretty excited about is our vendor portal. The vendor portal we have had, it's been around, but they have really revamped it on our software at Folio. And so it is much more user-friendly for our vendors. And I did a little short YouTube tutorial that we sent to the vendors that explains to them how to use the vendor portal. And so now our vendors, when we send them a work order, do you want to go ahead and take that?
Yeah.
How that flow is?
And I'll even start with, while it's beneficial to our vendors, it really starts with the tenant. When they put that
Right.
work order in, you're given the option to go ahead and select availability dates and times, which, helps the vendor. They're already kind of looking at their calendar, knowing what your availability is. They're giving you a call, they're reaching out. Once they schedule that appointment with the tenant, they're able to mark the work order so we see it on our end as scheduled. Then it allows them to upload an estimate directly to us or mark the work order as completed. So on our end, we know the work order is done. We're not having to reach out to the tenant and follow up. We're not having to hound our vendors. Then, normally within a couple of days, they'll go ahead and attach the invoice directly to that work order. I go in, close it out, make sure they get paid, and it just streamlined that whole process from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, and the really neat thing about it is it's all real time.
Mhm.
So the tenant, like Ashley was saying, they can go ahead and put in, their preferred appointments times, but then the vendor can follow that up and either accept those times or communicate right there with the tenant. We get to see all that communication. They can upload photos of the before and after jobs that they do. And then having that invoice, being able to have that uploaded right away, there's less chance for it to get lost. Vendors like it because they get to get paid faster.
And as Ashley mentioned, they can actually upload their estimates right to the
Mhm.
work order, and I can easily go in once a homeowner is ready to approve of it. It can be approved right from that work order, and it sends it to the vendor right away, and it holds the funds. So it's just kind of cuts down on those steps a little bit.
Yeah, and I really love the real-time aspect of it because
Absolutely.
I mean,
I agree.
we all work remotely, and that'll be a subject towards the end. And so when we're not all in the same office, it's not like we're gonna pick up the phone. Oh, did so and so make it out there today? Well, let me rephrase that. We have had to pick up the phone and do that. Whereas now, because it's real time and the vendors are updating it whenever they leave the property, we can see, exactly what's going on and where we're at with it. And the other beauty of it is if the vendor doesn't accept that work order right away, Ashley reassigns it to another vendor. So we're not sitting there waiting and losing a day or two
Exactly.
just in waiting for the processing or waiting for a vendor to accept the work order. So that's been really helpful too.
And I like what Tanya said, if the vendor will just hit the button when they leave, it keeps me from having to send that email that you don't like about what's the status.
Right, yeah, because all you have to do is mark it as completed. There's a place for you to put some notes, and then we know what's going on. Yeah, we don't have to call. Of course, the vendors, they're out there in the field. They don't want to be taking phone calls. So it really does make it a lot easier, and it's not any specific app you have to have on your phone. It works right there through the internet, works on all the phones. So that's been great.
Absolutely.
So Tiana,
Stellar.
yeah.
Yeah, speaking of, it's funny that you mentioned that. Speaking of updated technology, one thing that we've been moving toward, and I'm sure Tanya would probably be excited about this too, is moving into something called Stellar, which is basically multiple listing services. But before, what we were using was Gainesville,
the local MLS, and we still use Gainesville's local MLS,
Absolutely
but
do.
Stellar is another MLS, and it tends to service the I-75 corridor. So all the way down from Ocala, all the way down past Tampa. So now, of course, we're members here, Gainesville MLS, but we're also members of Stellar MLS, which again gives us access all the way from heck, out there, Gilchrist County, where I'm at, to Tampa. And so Tiana is the point person for putting our properties into Stellar, and I know that you really like that system.
Absolutely, it's really user friendly. So one thing that it really helps me with is if I'm listing a property outside of Gainesville, let's say like Ocala, first of all, we can expand our territory a little bit, and I can
which
look.
we have.
Well, that's great. Definitely needed that. I think it allows me to look at market value prices, not just again in the Gainesville area, but outside of our city lines. And it also lets me look at how many views we've had on listings and gives me a real full market report that's extremely easy to pull up. I love giving homeowners their updates every Monday. So having that Stellar report, I think, has just made it a lot easier to know how many agents have viewed the property, how many clients have viewed the property or saved the property. Again, much more user friendly. Speaking also on a buyer's side, it does allow me to set up a listing cart, which basically sends buyers properties that fit their criteria. And when I'm comparing it, I mean, of course, Gainesville has that access as well, but I think Stellar, again, just a little bit of a touch more easy, user-friendly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It basically creates a portal where the buyer can go in and view all the properties, let us know which ones they like, or make little comments on different properties that they're interested in. So again, a lot easier to use with buyers and sellers.
So I think we'll let you go ahead and then now that you are talking about listing properties, we brought on a new tool, another resource for us for our social media marketing, because as you guys might guess, I mean, that's where it's at. Social media marketing is where real estate has moved to when you're trying to find something for rent or for sale. Having, posting those pictures on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google Plus and Google, well, it's Google business pages now. But there's just so many places to go and so many things to do with it. So we have brought in really some fantastic automation in that arena too. So you want to talk about it?
Absolutely.
Listings to leads?
Yes, so Listings to Leads is a new platform that we've been using, and really what it does is it integrates from the listings that we list on MLS, and it automatically populates into Listings to Leads, and it then sends it out to our social media. So that primarily includes Facebook. That's one of the most important that we like using. And what it allows us to do is also share the link with the homeowner so they can then, of course, share it with their friends and family, and it does increase the traffic. We've seen properties, I mean, truly, it actually gives us a weekly update as to how many views we get, and you could definitely see the properties with the more views do tend to sell or lease out much more quickly than the ones that have less views. So the more shares we have and the more times a homeowner reposts it to their profile, you're definitely getting a lot more traffic on that listing. And again, it's basically just taking the same details as when we listed the property on MLS, but it's letting people know on Facebook or Instagram or any social media, hey, look at my new property, here's some photos, click on it, come take a look at it. And even if people are just looking at it with no interest of buying or renting it, having that increased traffic really does increase basically what we call Google juice. And what that does is it allows your listing to increase on those platforms where it's actually gathering more organic views after you have enough people clicking on it. So it really does drive more renters or buyers to your property.
Yep. So that is also a good segue into another program that we started using this year called Deliver It. It's Deliver It without the E whenever you're Googling it. But Deliver It is a program that Ashley works with quite a bit because, again, the way that we're able to keep our properties visible and getting a lot of activity is to promote them on the internet and to increase our SEO, search engine optimization, for those properties. And so the program Deliver It allows us to pre-schedule things, and it also allows us to have a direct RSS feed from, let's say, Realtor.com or Coastal Living magazines or all these different places that property management resources, landlord-tenant laws, and it allows us to feed that stuff in through our social media, so Twitter and
Yeah, just an online presence. Like you said, you gotta have an online presence these days. It's a real driving point. So Deliver It just allows us, like you said, to set up all those lead sites that we get prevalent information from. It passes that easily on to anyone who follows us on Facebook. They get that information right away. And also we do some local things, normally on the weekend when I get the Gainesville newsletter, I'll try to list local events or farmers markets just to give our tenants or owners some ideas of things going on locally. But if you want to build that online presence, I think whether it's Deliver It or any similar program, you can just go on there and all your social media, Facebook, Twitter, if you have multiple Facebook pages, you just put it in there once, you schedule it, and it sends it out to everything, because I couldn't imagine if I had to go into all those sites individually and set the articles up. I mean, I would easily kill an hour to 2 hours a day to get 3 or 4, maybe.
Yeah.
So I don't even know the number. It's just so easy. I go in there and I can do 10 in a matter of minutes, but I mean, gosh, it would take hours to do that, to have to log into every site.
Yeah. So let's see, what else do we want to tell you guys? So how about our investor services? We could talk about that. We kind of fell into this, but our company is growing quite a bit in the fix and flip business. So we, it all started with an investor one day that gave me a call, and he's like, hey, you're a property manager and I know you know how to find vendors. I want to buy some property and have you fix it up and sell it for me. And I'm like, heck yeah, I can do that. So we did, and he was right. I mean, I've got 33 years in Gainesville doing property management. We've got a great list of vendors that we work with. We're used to going into a house and turning it over in 7 days. So, this is a little bit bigger turnover. Maybe we're putting in cabinets and countertops, new vanities in the bathroom, but these are things that we do all the time anyway in the course of our regular property management business, and we generally only give ourselves about 2 weeks in between tenants. So with our flip properties, hiring us to do that for an investor, it's such a huge service because we get it done quickly. We have the resources. We know where to go to get materials, perhaps more inexpensively. I know that I've been able to do kitchens and bathrooms for half of what some of the other companies in town that specialize in cabinets and that kind of thing are doing. So I know Tanya has worked really closely with a lot of the investors that we've done some fix and flips on, and I personally, with my fiance Jeff, we bought a house and we did a fix and flip on, and fix and hold for 9 months and flip, but it takes a little while, right?
You got there, that's all that matters.
The thing is, had I hired myself as a company, that job probably would have been done a lot quicker. But Jeff and I were not in a hurry. We wanted to really make sure and do it right, and it was the first one that we had done together, and he did 622 hours in that property is how much he worked. And typically we are jobbing that out to other people, and so we can get it done a little bit quicker than what he and I did with ours. But you can look on our website and in our blog and in this blog further down, and we'll have a link to some of those properties. But the investor services are really increasing quite a bit, and we're getting a lot more people coming to us for that. And through doing that, I've been able to get access and get on the list to get firsthand knowledge of off-market properties. Properties that are in the process of being foreclosed on or right before foreclosure. And so there are some really sweet deals that I'm either able to jump on or pass along to our investors. And so we are starting a mailing list, and if you are interested in getting information about off-market properties, you want to just shoot us an email or reach out on any one of our social media platforms, and we can add you to that list. And then as we start seeing those properties, we're going to start pushing them out to our list of investors.
And Tanya, I just think you have a lot to offer there, because you've done it from a personal level, and you've tried to get the most for your money. You've gained so much knowledge there, and you're able to pass that on to the investors that come back to us. And then if they go on, Tiana's got that listing side down of it. got a great relationship with our vendors, and you know, we're just able to get it done quickly, and the knowledge you bring to it is really helpful for those that are just kind of getting their feet wet in that investing.
That's actually what I was about to say, is that when Tanya walks through the property, she's looking at it from a buyer's standpoint or a tenant's standpoint, depending on the purpose of the investment property. And there are a lot of things you wouldn't even think of, you know, just a feng shui of the home entirely that you're really looking at, putting videos together so that we can go back and review it again later. And I think working as a team, it does help us decide, you know, what color schemes to do, what works better with the home. I've seen homes that we've flipped that have definitely increased in thousands and thousands of dollars just by putting in, you know, something silly like a different paint color or
On the
something
cabinets,
Right,
yeah.
and that's almost kind of like a shameless plug to our maintenance article in this newsletter, because we talk about that, and Tanya's got a lot of experience, and you know, pay this extra $100 for this fixture is going to get you a bigger return. And you know, it does get costly, and sometimes it's hard to see, spend it, well, I can get this for $50, why am I going to pay $120? But your return on that $120
It's more like $200, whereas your return on that $50 is $50.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that is something, and that can be really tricky whenever you're working with somebody else doing that. So whenever you can turn that over and then just be a little hands-off. And you know, we're really good to work with. If you want to have some hands-on, that's fine. If you want to like discuss some of the things that you might want to see in the property, you know, we're usually able to help integrate that as well. But a lot of our investors, they're completely hands-off. They don't care. They just want to see it increase in value and sell quickly. And so we have done really well in that area. So one of the other things that we started, well, I guess that I started doing this year is teaching property management. And that just kind of also came naturally because I have been doing property management for over 30 years. I tend to be kind of the go-to rental girl in Gainesville. So when anybody, you know, all the other realtors in town have a question about rentals, or if there's, you know, some confrontation or problems, complications with landlord and tenant, a lot of times, you know, they will call me. I do sit on the board of realtors in a couple of different formats, and one of them is in the grievance committee. And so we see some of these complaints that come in. And if you just, you know, an ounce of prevention, which is actually further down in our article on a different subject altogether, but being able to teach property management, again, is something that I enjoy. I like to be able to share how we do things. I've never really worried about somebody stealing my ideas, because I mean, there are ideas that everybody can use. They're already out there. And so teaching just really has been something that I enjoy. I teach yoga, so I was never really nervous about sitting down and teaching. And so the class that I teach is how to make the most of your property management business, and it's typically taken by realtors who are thinking about getting into the business. With the pandemic and everything kind of moving to online, I started teaching Zoom classes, which of course, again, had not really done before the pandemic, but in my yoga class that I teach, I was contacted by my students quite often saying, gosh, I missed your class, you know, can you do something online? And so I just kind of bit the bullet one day out on my deck and set up my camera, my phone, and did a Facebook Live class. And since I started that class, I just continued to do that for those students that can't come in. So when we had to move teaching, you know, for the Florida Realtor class, how to make the most of your property management business, and they asked me if I could teach it on Zoom. I was like, sure, I can teach it on Zoom. Why not, right? But then I never knew, okay, 4 hours on Zoom. How do you keep people interested for 4 hours? But honestly, I swear, the time flew by. Everybody was very interactive. Tiana was helping me keep up with some of the questions that were coming in on the chat room. So that's really exciting. That's something that I've always wanted to do and that I've kind of always done, but now I'm doing it for, you know, different MLSs. I did it for the associations. I did it for the Ocala Association. I've taught a couple of classes here for Gainesville. And now that I've kind of gotten a few under my belt, you know, I'll reach out to some of those other associations. And then this year I'm actually getting approved to teach another class, again, designed around property management. So that's been kind of fun. I will be looking looking to branch out a little bit, doing some consulting services, which I've done all along still here in Gainesville. There are a lot of different property management companies that have contacted me and asked me, well, how do you do this and how do you do that? And I'm always happy to share that information. So I'm thinking about just adding that in as, again, another just natural evolution to the services that we're offering now. So one of the last things that I think we wanted to talk about, and we saved it for last because we're all just almost so tired of the pandemic, right? Everybody's waiting for 2020 to be over, to get past this pandemic, but I don't think we're really going to be past the pandemic. We're just going to be past 2020. But the pandemic. So we do want to talk a little bit about how the pandemic has affected us in not only in sales, but in property management. And so I'll start off, and then the girls will also share some of their stories. But I remember I was camping in St. Augustine on spring break, so that's March, when all of this just first started coming about. And we didn't know what was going to happen. You know, were tenants going to be able to pay rent? You know, were people going to be able to go to work? And so when May started rolling around, that was the first time that we kind of were like, I wonder if our tenants are going to pay rent.
Were they going to pay rent? I think from the leasing agent side, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're fixing to be in the busiest season. How am I going to get tenants out of a property and new tenants in a property? And I think that was probably the first time that I really saw we had been, or you, I've been with you for 2 years, I think February, or you're February and March, so that 2-year mark is coming up. So I think I reflected back and really saw how, I don't think knowingly, you had already laid the groundwork, and we were prepared going into this where some others may not have been that fortunate. We had videos online, we had photos, so it was so easy when someone said, hey, I want to move into this house, how do I see it? I've got that virtual video on there, there's photos. I always still recommended that if you could get in the area, do a drive-by the neighborhood, because that's one thing that, I mean, I don't think video can ever really capture that part of it, but I think everybody was looking for a little something to do, and I learned quickly that we were moving properties, probably faster than we ever had. Then I think Tiana saw when the May, June rent rolled around, tenants were paying. You know, we had a small percentage that, I don't know that there were any I can't pays. It was more, can you give me some extra time?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest part of it was communication. That was the most important throughout this. Of course, we were worried about delinquent rent.
Right.
I think we did a really great job as far as communicating before the first of the month to try to figure out how everyone was coping with this, if there were going to be any issues with paying rent. As Ashley mentioned, we had a few people who maybe needed a little bit of an extension, but I would say overall we had less than 1% of tenants paying rent late. And even from, I did during this quarantine period, I was taking a lot of Zoom classes during that time. I mean, what else to do than take more property management Zoom classes? And that was one thing where I did see some other companies really struggled with switching over from being in person in the office collecting rent to an solely online platform. That was one thing where some property management companies were spending a lot of time trying to figure that part out, whereas I feel like we already had that part nailed down. We could spend more time on actual preventative issues, like foreshadowing that, okay, well, if this lasts longer than what we expected, which it did, we can at least try to figure out, again, making sure that we are communicating with tenants as far as not just paying rent, but also work orders, inspections, anything that requires entering a home can be a really tricky process when you have, to enter someone's personal home during this time. So making sure that vendors were fully up to date on PPE gear, making sure that we were really only entering there was a certain amount of time that we only entered for real crucial reasons, like actual emergency work orders. Until tenants started feeling more comfortable. That included inspections. We actually had some residents sending us video walkthroughs or photos during that time.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I think, staying on top of it in that aspect and not having to worry about how are we going to work remotely. We were
Right.
already
working
set up for
It
that.
just allowed us to focus on the issue at hand and
Exactly.
how are we going to solve it.
We're 2 steps
versus
ahead.
how do I set up an at-home office and how do we get our
Exactly.
calls and how are we going to collect our rent, because we were already so automated in all of those
Absolutely.
processes.
Yeah, so when I started the company, I did start it as a remote office, and that allowed me to bring in all the technology that supported it. So we had the internet phone service and the cloud filing systems, and our Folio software program fully supported the tenants paying rent on time online, applying to rent the property online. We already had videos, marketing videos of all of our properties. So for us, you know, I felt a little bad because I know that there were a lot of companies that really struggled, a lot of property management companies struggling with, you know, how are we going to get these properties rented? We don't have all these videos, and now we got tenants in place. How are we going to go get good marketing pictures and videos? So we definitely were able to handle that. And now we're seeing, of course, as all of you guys are seeing, businesses are moving to a lot more remote working, allowing people, well, we're all still in the pandemic, but I think as the pandemic subsides, you're going to see that a lot of people are still going to be, you know, of course it's forecasted, people are going to continue to do remote working. And so one of the things that we're seeing because of that is, you know, a little bit different trend in housing. People are looking for outdoor space, you know, good outdoor space. They're also looking to be able to have consolidated families, like the, you know, mom, grandmom, and the kids are all kind of living in the same house. We saw a little bit of that trend started a couple of years ago already, and now because of the pandemic, I think we're seeing a little bit more of that. But I believe, you know, the ability for people to work online and now school online, what that is doing is it's making people see that they're not stuck having to stay in this town and work in this town necessarily. I could go take a vacation in Mexico for 2 weeks and nobody would know I was gone, and I do that, you know, and she does that, you know, we're still working from wherever we're at, and because of that, we're gonna see an uptick in that short-term vacation rental. Those things are growing, and so that's where we're going to have some new services coming in 2021. I've bought, my partner and I, Jeff, have bought a vacation rental home that we're renovating, and it's over on the river by us, and so we're going to be doing a short-term vacation rental home with this home, and we'll perfect all of our policies and all of our in-house systems. You know, just using my little guinea pig as the first example, and then we're going to roll that out to.
I love that you're always willing to be our guinea pig. Like, who better to try it on yourself first? Like, we're not going to put our customers through that. We're going to try it right on you.
It's funny, every time I tell people, like, yeah, I'm going to do a little short-term vacation rental, I do this because I'm like, short-term rentals, people in and out all the time, and you're going to do it close to your home. Why are you doing that? But the key there is to hire a good maid service that also can do the inspecting, and I already have one of those in place, and she happens to live right down the road from me. So we're going to get that show going and have that service offered in 2021, because I do think that a lot of people are going to be looking for that.
I agree.
Winters on the slopes, summers on the beach.
And especially with right now some limitations on international travel, you'll see a lot of people within the country just taking little road trips and staying in different areas. So I think that will be a big part, at least for 2021. I think that's going to be a big part of traveling. Will probably be more domestic travel versus international travel.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Although I can't wait to get back out there and do some international travel.
Me too.
Homebody.
Yeah. Well, those are just some of the things that we wanted to share, just a little bit of year in review, and we really appreciate all the support in the business that you guys give us. And if you have any questions or anything else that you wanted to reach out to us about, feel free to. We'll put all the information in the little chat box below, and then of course you can read through the article, and this will be going out in our newsletter, so you'll be able to flip through and see a little bit more in-depth discussion on those things. So,
And working remotely allows us to keep to our customers' hours, because if you text at 8 o'clock in the morning, you're probably gonna get me. If you text at midnight, you might get a reply from Tiana at 2 a.m. So like, we're well-rounded at that, like, truly offering hours to anybody.
shh, no we don't. Anyway, thank you guys, and thank you
Thank
ladies.
you.
Thank you.
You
See
guys-
you in the new year.
That's right, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
I was a tacky person.